Hello students, I am Dr. K. Sarojini Chakravarti, working as Assistant Professor in the Department of Botany, Government Degree College, Khairabad, Hyderabad. In this class, we are going to learn about biogeochemical cycles. So what is a biogeochemical cycle? The flow of elements and compounds between living organisms and the physical environment is known as biogeochemical cycle. Chemicals observed or ingested by organisms are passed through the food chain and are returned to the soil, air, and water by mechanisms such as respiration, excretion, and decomposition. So, as an element, it moves through this cycle. It often forms compounds with other elements as a result of metabolic processes in living tissues. So, the flow of elements through the ecosystem is cyclic and is reused. The flow involves not only the living organisms, but also a series of chemicals in the abiotic environments. So that's why these cycles are called biogeochemical cycles. Biogeochemical cycles are of three types: hydrological cycle or water cycle, gaseous cycles, sedimentary cycles. So we'll see few cycles. The first one is water cycle or hydrological cycle. In a water cycle, interchange or exchange of water between atmosphere, land, and water bodies takes place, and between living organisms and their environment is accomplished through water cycle. So water cycle involves four events. One is evaporation, transpiration, condensation, that is cloud formation, and precipitation. So evaporation takes place from all the water bodies on the earth. It may be oceans, seas, rivers, anything. So evaporation takes place from water bodies. Transpiration takes place from plants, and the water reached atmosphere, it will be condensed in the formation of cloud formation. After condensation, again precipitation takes place, results in the formation of rainfall, and this rainfall, it reaches land again. Again, all the water bodies will be filled up by this rainfall or rainwater. Again, so like this, it will takes place in a cyclic way. That's why it is known as water cycle. So this everybody knows. Next is carbon cycle. So carbon cycle, in a carbon cycle, carbon is a basic constituent of all organic compounds. So here, energy transfer occurs in the consumption and storage of carbohydrates and fats, and carbon moves to the ecosystem with flow of energy. So the source of carbon found in all the living organisms is carbon dioxide, which is found in atmosphere in the free state, and is in the dissolved state in the water bodies. So carbon dioxide, which is present in the atmosphere, is utilized by the green plant, that is producers, to prepare their food through the process photosynthesis in the presence of sunlight, and carbohydrates are formed. So these complex fats and polysaccharides, carbohydrates which are formed in plants, are utilized by the animals in the ecosystem for the food chain. So the consumers or the carnivores which feed on these herbivores which are eating these green plants, and the carbon compounds are again digested and converted into the other form. Again, from here through excretion or the process, carbon is released to the atmosphere directly as carbon dioxide in respiration of both plants and animals. Bacteria and fungi attack on the dead remains of plants and animals. They degrade the complex organic compounds into simple substances, which are then available for other cycles. Even organic carbon is incorporated into the Earth's crust as in the form of coal, gas, petroleum, limestone, etc. And carbon dioxide is also released into the atmosphere through factories. So this is how a carbon cycle takes place. So in this picture, very clearly we can see, so from atmosphere, carbon dioxide is used by the plants, and from plants they're eaten by herbivores. Herbivores are eaten by the carnivores. Again, through respiration, carbon dioxide is released, taking up the oxygen, and in the carbon dioxide is in the dissolved state in the water bodies, and whatever carbon is there, it is, it is in the form of coal, gas, petroleum in the earth's crust. So like this, carbon cycle takes place. Next is nitrogen cycle. Nitrogen cycle, uh, of all the elements, plants absorb nitrogen from the soil, and nitrogen is the most important for plant growth. Nitrogen is required for the synthesis of amino acids, proteins, enzymes, chlorophylls, nucleic acids, etc. Green plants obtain nitrogen from soil solution in the form of ammonium, nitrate, and nitrite ions. And the main source of all these nitrogen compounds is the atmospheric nitrogen. Nitrogen cycle consists of the following steps. First is nitrogen fixation. Second is nitrogen assimilation, ammonification, nitrification, denitrification, sedimentation. First one is nitrogen fixation. Conversion of free atmospheric nitrogen into the biologically acceptable form or nitrogenous compounds is known as nitrogen fixation. This process, it occurs in two ways. First one is non-biological nitrogen fixation. Second is biological nitrogen fixation. What is non-biological? Means living organisms are not involved in the fixation of nitrogen. So how it takes place? So it takes place, an atmospheric nitrogen, it combines with oxygen as ozone during lightning or electrical discharges in the clouds and produces different nitrogen oxides. So the nitrogen oxides get dissolved in water, rainwater, and on reaching Earth's surface, they react with mineral compounds to form nitrates and other nitrogenous compounds. So this is regarding non-biological nitrogen fixation, means it is also known as physicochemical nitrogen fixation. Next is biological nitrogen fixation. So here biological organisms, living organisms are involved. So it is mostly carried out by certain prokaryotes. Some blue-green algae also fix atmospheric nitrogen in the oceans, lakes, and soils. Symbiotic bacteria, example, Rhizobium species, which inhabits the root nodules of leguminous plants, also fixes atmospheric nitrogen. Non-leguminous plants and symbiotic blue-green algae such as nostoc and abina also fix atmospheric nitrogen. And in the thalli of Anthocera, Salvinia, Azolla, coralloid roots of cycas also fix atmospheric nitrogen. So these are the few examples of biological nitrogen fixation. Next is nitrogen assimilation. In nitrogen assimilation, inorganic nitrogen in the form of nitrates, nitrites, and ammonia is observed by the green plants and converted into nitrogenous organic compounds. First, nitrates are converted into ammonia, which combines with organic acids to form amino acids. Amino acids are used in the synthesis of proteins, enzymes, chlorophylls, nucleic acids, etc. Animals derive their nitrogen requirement from the plant proteins. Plant proteins are not directly utilized by the animals. First, they are broken down into amino acids during digestion, and these amino acids are absorbed and manipulated into animal proteins, nucleic acids, etc. Next is ammonification. The dead organic remains of plants and animals and excreta of animals are acted upon by microorganisms, especially actinomycetes and bacilli. Bacilli species like Bacillus ramosus, Bacillus vulgaris, etc. So these organisms, they utilize organic compounds in their metabolism and release ammonia. And the process is known as ammonification. Fourth step is nitrification. Certain bacteria such as Nitrosomonas, Nitrococcus, Nitrosoglia, Nitrospira, Nitrobacter, etc., which are present in oceans and soils, convert ammonia, which is released through the process ammonification, converts ammonia into nitrites and then in nitrites into nitrates. So in this, we can see in this reaction where ammonia in the presence of oxygen releases, converts into nitrites and energy, and these nitrites are then converted back into nitrates. Some nitrates are also made available through weathering of nitrate containing rocks. Fifth step is denitrification. What is denitrification? Ammonia and nitrates are converted back into free nitrogen by certain microorganisms is known as denitrification. The microorganisms involved in this process are Thiobacillus denitrificans, Micrococcus denitrificans, Pseudomonas aeruginosa. So these are the few examples of denitrifying bacteria which converts ammonia and nitrates into free atmospheric nitrogen. So in this chemical reaction, very clearly we can see. The last is sedimentation. So what is sedimentation? Nitrates of the soil are washed down to the sea or leached deep into the earth along with percolating water. Nitrates thus lost from the soil surface are locked up in the rocks. This is known as sedimentation of nitrogen. So the nitrogen of rock is released only when the rocks are exposed and weathered. Thus, a large part of nitrogen is fixed up and stored in plants, animals, and microbes. Nitrogen leaves the living system in the same amount it is taken in from the atmosphere, and the input and outflow of nitrogen are balanced in the ecosystem. So there is no loss of nitrogen. So in this picture, very clearly we can see how nitrogen, free atmospheric nitrogen, it moves in different stages through different chemical processes or events. So here this is atmospheric free nitrogen, which is available to the plants through nitrogen fixing bacteria. First is through nitrogen assimilation. Next is through ammonification, converts into ammonia. Ammonia is then converted back into nitrites and nitrates by nitrifying bacteria, and these nitrates are again converted back into atmospheric nitrogen through denitrification or denitrifying bacteria. So this whole process is taking place in a cyclic way involving atmosphere, soil, plants, living organisms, microorganisms, everything. So that's why it is known as biogeochemical cycle. So in the next class, we'll see another topic.